Russian military blogger Maxim Kalashnikov, in a frank admission, has essentially confirmed the failure of the special operation and Putin's many years of multi-move tactics. The day before, he said on air that Russia had destroyed precisely those regions of Ukraine that it considered the closest. Kalashnikov says, "We want to liberate them, but turn them into ruins, and it turns out that we punished the most pro-Russian regions of Ukraine. Unfortunately, now we will have to say goodbye to the dream of reunification with Ukraine." According to him, Russia has finally become bogged down in the quagmire of a protracted war and has turned away even those Ukrainians who were once loyal to Moscow. Now, residents of Donbass, Kharkov and Lugansk regions see Russia as an occupier and a war criminal. Kalashnikov does not directly name the culprit of the disaster, but it is clear from the text that the responsibility lies with Putin. His policies not only destroyed Ukrainian cities, but also brought down the Russian economy. It is noteworthy that even Z bloggers admit there is no protection of the Russian-speaking population. Instead, there is a punitive operation against those very Russian-speaking citizens of Ukraine who have traditionally gravitated towards Russia. But even understanding the reality, none of them dares to openly call for an end to the war. Recall the brutality of Russia's invasion has disproportionately affected the predominantly Russian-speaking population of eastern and southern Ukraine, leading to an historic shift in attitudes toward Russia in what were previously the most pro-Russian regions of the country. Dozens of towns and cities in these regions have been reduced to rubble, with thousands of civilians killed and millions subjected to forced deportation. As a result, anti-Russian sentiments that were traditionally more prevalent in central and western Ukraine are now also widely embraced in the south and east. Ukrainians now overwhelmingly express negative attitudes toward the Russian population and have been horrified to witness the popularity of the war among ordinary Russians. Millions of Ukrainians with friends and family in Russia have learned from bitter personal experience that many Russians wholeheartedly back the war and refuse to acknowledge the atrocities taking place in Ukraine. Amid the horrors of today's full-scale war, the breakdown in relations between Russia and Ukraine has now reached the point of no return.
The Philippine Coast Guard said Tuesday 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships hit a Filipino fishing vessel with powerful water cannons for nearly 30 minutes, resulting in significant damage, including in the captain's cabin and the bridge. A glass window was shattered and injured a personnel, while the deluge of water caused a short circuit that affected electrical outlets and 5 outdoor air conditioning units, it said. A Chinese Navy warship also broadcast a radio notice announcing live-fire exercises at the shoal, which caused panic among Filipino fishermen, said the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard and fisheries ships were deployed to the shoal on Tuesday to provide fuel, water, ice and other aid to more than 35 fishing boats in the area. Several friendly countries have backed the Philippines on the nature reserve. A statement from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the Chinese action yet another coercive move to advance sweeping territorial and maritime claims in the South China Sea at the expense of its neighbors. The UK and Australia also expressed concern, and the Canadian Embassy in the Philippines said it opposed attempts to use environmental protection as a way to take control over the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
Forward distance 10, forward distance 10. Starboard clear, sir. Starboard clear, starboard clear. Ano ka kap? Starboard yan. Pwede na. Diretso. Kap, starboard kap. Kap, diretso kap. Kalde ka pwede.
Russia has long believed that hybrid attacks remain its exclusive weapon of pressure and that Europe would not dare to respond. But as the New York Times has discovered, governments in several EU countries have begun to take covert action against Russian provocations. This is the first sign that the Kremlin is losing its monopoly on sabotage. The New York Times, citing its own sources, reports that several European countries that are most often subjected to Russian attacks are already conducting covert operations in response. The details are not disclosed, but Swedish Defense Minister Pål Jonson confirmed that this is not only about strengthening defense, but also about actions that complicate Russia's work. Jonson emphasized Russia operates in the grey zone between the Cold Peace and the Cold War. Now, this zone is no longer one-sided. Europe, albeit cautiously, is ready to use mirror methods. Previously, Moscow was confident that its status as a nuclear power protected it from retaliatory steps. Now, even the possibility of using NATO's Article 5 in the event of hybrid attacks is being discussed. The alliance's Secretary-General Mark Rutte said, "The reaction will be devastating. When it comes to hybrid threats, we are not naive. Steps from confiscating Russian assets to increasing support for Ukraine are being discussed. Drone incursions into Poland have forced the closure of airports in Warsaw, Rzeszów and Lublin. Another case of EU airspace violation has been recorded in Romania. European diplomats also link the attacks to an attempt to hack the GPS system of the plane of the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Russia's NATO neighbors are rapidly losing patience, and it is dangerous to underestimate them. These are countries that not only have discipline and selectivity in their actions, but also have the resources, knowledge and technology to carry out sabotage attacks on its infrastructure and economy, even in the deep rear. Today, Moscow has a colossal border with the alliance: Finland, the Baltics, Ukraine. And if the West really decides to use its full potential, Russia will face problems, the scale of which the Kremlin prefers not to even voice.